You're live.
You're live.
Good afternoon. The Public Safety Standing Committee meeting for the Annapolis City Council is now being called to order. It is 4:07 p.m. And now for the roll call. Alderman Payon.
I'm here.
Alderman Gay. Well, we do have a quorum. At this point, we will make a motion to approve the agenda with any amendments. I do have one amendment to public safety spotlight, and did you know I will have a chairperson's report as well during that section. So Alderman Payon, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So moved. So approved. Next on the agenda, approval of the minutes. I've had an opportunity to review the minutes. They look to be in order. Alderman Payon.
I reviewed them yesterday and I agree. They do appear to be in order and I would move their approval.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No one. Next on the agenda is public safety spotlight and did you know? And I do believe, I think, Director Simmons from the Office of Emergency Management is available. Director Simmons, are you available? If not, I will continue. Director Simmons? Do you have anything for the spotlight and did you know this afternoon?
Good afternoon, committee. How's everybody doing today? Can you hear me okay?
Doing great.
Everybody's well.
Good to see you guys as always. I do have a spotlight. I have a spotlight and I want to spotlight one of my staff, Hannah Thomas, effective October 13th. A week from tomorrow, Hannah Thomas, the Office of Emergency Management's Exercise Training and Outreach Coordinator, will be leaving service with the City of Annapolis to accept a position with the Maryland Emergency Response System.
Wow.
Hannah, previously employed, when she came here, she was employed by the Maryland Department of Health, Preparedness, and Response, and she came to Annapolis about 3.5 years ago. She was the top candidate in that hiring process for that position. And that process yielded many qualified candidates from this area and beyond, and she was the best one. When we hired Hannah, she hit the ground running. She made her mark with the delivery of training programs, community outreach, and public information. Some of her accomplishments are the management and delivery of the active shooter training series and the development of a reunification plan, if you can remember that, Alderwoman.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's a licensed drone pilot and she has the Office of Emergency Management's drone program. She's made numerous presentations in the region to include the Neighbor Helping Neighbor program. She was scheduled to present on active shooter last May at the Maryland Emergency Management Agency's annual conference. Unfortunately, it was canceled due to the pandemic. Hannah has worked with local houses of worship to help them write their emergency action plans and write grants. And in fact, she helped First Presbyterian Church secure a $28,000 grant. Other training that Hannah has facilitated is parade marshal training, call taker training, and she's one of our public information officers. During her tenure here in Annapolis, Hannah could be counted to take on any task, no matter how difficult it was. And she was totally committed to the welfare of the citizens of Annapolis. We wish her all the best in her new role, and she will be missed, particularly by me.
Absolutely. And we're sorry to see Hannah leave. We really are. She's been a great asset to the city, but we are congratulating her for moving on and moving up. So I know she'll do extremely well, but we really are saddened to see her go, but don't want to stand in anyone's way who's moving on to to bigger things, and something I'm sure she will thoroughly enjoy. And again, we will all miss her extremely. Thank you for bringing that to us, Director Simmons, and for a very concise and detailed report on Hannah's departure. That is extremely important. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before, but thank you so much. That's you.
Well, I appreciate my staff. I have a very good staff, a bunch of high performers. I hate to see them leave, but again, I wish her well. I'm gonna miss her.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do we have police or fire here for a spotlight, or did you know? Thank you, Alderman Gay. How are you this afternoon?
I'm well. How are you guys?
We're doing well. Chief O'Malley?
Yes, ma'am.
Any spotlight, or did you know?
So the spotlight would, once again, I believe, would be on the entire department during this pandemic. All our personnel have come to work. They've adapted to whatever safety changes have been needed, and they continue to not skip a beat and serve the public as for any call of service that comes out. So I just want to give a shout out to them. The Did You Know would be more that October 4th through the 10th is National Fire Prevention Week. And this year's theme is Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen. And that would be because more than half of all residential fires involve some sort of cooking appliance. And the majority of residential fires in the United States are caused by unattended cooking. So we just want everybody out there to be safe, to make sure that they don't leave food on the stove unattended, that they keep flames away from dish towels, and that they don't go to sleep while there's stuff on the stove. Besides that, as you know, we believe we've had an uptick in overdoses. I'll leave it up to the police and OEM to update the OD chart or website there, but we continue to respond to overdoses throughout the pandemic. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief O'Malley. And anyone out there from the Annapolis City Police Department with a spotlight, or did you know? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, I will give a chair's spotlight. And as some of you may know, I receive quite frequently letters from police, fire, and the Office of Emergency Management concerning their spotlight folks. And today I hereby formally recognize the men and women of our city's public safety team, police, fire, and Office of Emergency Management, who have been recognized in writing or by phone for their outstanding service to our city under the administration and leadership of our Mayor, Gavin Buckley. And also those men and women in organizations who we have recognized for their service to our Annapolis community. First of all, letter dated March 20th, 2020 from Ray Sears and the Knights of Columbus, complimenting Captain Aaron Edwards and firefighters Jonathan Chrisman and Allison M. Hayes regarding their outstanding assistance concerning CPR training. 2, letter dated March 26, 2020 from the City of Harrisburg's Fire Department, complimenting Lieutenant Kelly Ruth, Annapolis Fire Department, AFD, regarding the outstanding assistance given during their promotional process. 3 letters, one dated March 27th, June 26th, and one dated August 20th, 2020 from our own Fire Chief, Douglas M. O'Malley, thanking the Annapolis Hilton Garden Inn, specifically Ms. Mary Parks, Director of Sales, for providing warm chocolate chip cookies for our city firefighters at our 3 fire stations. And from what I've heard around town, including from Director Simmons, Ms. Parks's cookies are legendary. Number 4.
Hey, he's never given me any of those.
I will have to intercede and ask Ms. Parks for some for the committee. Letter dated April 17, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to Heart International for assisting AFD in coordinating PPE donations for our personnel. Number 5, letter dated April 17, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to the Mobile Medical Team International for assisting AFD in coordinating PPE donations for our personnel. Number 6, letter dated April 17, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to the Partnership for Quality Medical Donations for assisting AFD in coordinating PPE donations for our personnel. Number 7, letter dated April 21st, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to Assistant City Attorney Carrie Berger for for assisting AFD in coordinating PPE donations from Integrated Dermatology of Charles County for our personnel. Number 8, letter dated April 21st, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to Integrated Dermatology of Charles County for assisting AFD in coordinating PPE donations for our personnel. Number 9, letter dated May 12th, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to Project Cure for assisting AFD in coordinating PPE donations for our personnel. Number 10, letter dated June 12, 2020, from an Annapolis resident, Ward 1, via Nextdoor, commending Battalion Chief Aaron M. Boston, who very professionally handled a situation with a teen who was littering along West Street. Number 11, letter dated July 9, 2020, from Chief O'Malley to Lead Green Associate for the use of their property's parking lot at 1750 Forest Drive to perform recent hose testing. Number 12, letters dated July 30th, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to Prince George's County's Fire Department's Battalion Chief Leninsky and his supervisor, Fire Chief Tiffany D. Green, for the Battalion Chief coming to play bagpipes during the funeral of former AFD Fire Chief Charles Steele, the playing of bagpipes being a long-standing and meaningful tradition within the fire service. Number 13, letter dated July 30th, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to Anne Arundel County Fire Chief Tricia L. Wolford for their assistance and support during the time of their recent loss of former AFD Chief Steele. Number 14, letter dated July 30th, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to Anne Arundel County Police Chief Timothy Altamari for their assistance during the time of their recent loss of former AFD Chief Steele. Number 15, letter dated July 30th, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to Annapolis Police Chief Edward Jackson for their assistance during the time of their recent loss of former AFD Chief Steele. Number 16, letter dated August 13th, 2020 from Anne Arundel County Fire Department's Captain Keith Hamilton regarding the vital and heroic assistance that off-duty AFD Lieutenant Randy J. Perky provided to an injured driver who was entrapped in a vehicle that was heavily damaged and that was starting to burn. And Lieutenant Perky pulled out that injured driver, which occurred out on Quarterfield Road in Glen Burnie. Number 17, letter dated August 28, 2020 from Chief O'Malley to Mr. and Mrs. David Buttrell for making gowns and then donating them to AFD. And number 18, last but certainly not least, it's never too late for recognizing a thank you from Annapolis resident Patrick McCarthy. His letter, which appeared in the Capital newspaper on May 23rd, 2018, which I shall read in its entirety here, entitled Help from Officer. I am writing to publicly thank Officer John Manning of the Annapolis Police Department for the assistance he provided my sons and me with a broken down vehicle. The car died at the entry of the Taylor Avenue and West Street Circle at the height of the evening rush hour. Officer Manning arrived on the scene, and I believed he intended to direct traffic while we pushed the car to a safe location almost 3 blocks away. He broke out the flares, positioned his car behind us with lights on, and we were truly grateful for his help. However, he was far from done. As my sons and I began to push the car away, I looked to my left to see Officer Manning in full gear with a shoulder leaning into the other rear fender. I've taught my 6 children and everyone I've coached and mentored throughout the years to respect and admire the work the police do daily. As a 30-year military veteran, I have a great affinity for the fraternity between police officers and military members. Officer Manning personified everything that is good in the men and women who choose a life of selfless service to protect and aid those in our community who are in need. Thank you, Officer Manning, for all you do for the citizens of and visitors to Annapolis. Thank you all very much. Next, we will move on to any written reports and comments and year-to-date overdose summary from Office of Emergency Management, Fire Department, and/or Police Department. Yes, Ms. Green.
We do have Chief Jackson on now.
Okay. Chief Jackson, welcome. Do you have any persons on within your ranks to spotlight, or is there anything else that you would like us to hear as far as something that we do not know about?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
No problem.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, I was signing some orders. But did you know, I have a couple of things. I'll run through them quick. we repurposed our flex units, and then now they're our neighborhood enhancement team. So they went from strictly enforcement to a combination of enforcement and community outreach to work with our new substations, or i.e. community centers in Robinwood and Harbor House. So the net units will be a part of engaging the community to help solve problems in a general sense, not just enforce crime-related issues, but quality of life issues. So flex the net, our substations in the two developments, Harbor House and Robinwood. I transferred Lieutenant Krause to help with our transition to patrol. Lieutenant Krause is still going to do the engagements with young people, the fishing trips to camps and all that stuff, but he's also a patrol commander. I didn't have any gold badges in patrol, which is unacceptable. So Kevin Krause now is Assistant Captain Lowe in providing leadership to our young men and women in patrol. And he's still going to do those same engagements. I'm going to give him the latitude to do some of those community outreach programs, but he's going to do it from patrol. And so, and provide leadership to patrol officers. Also, I'll be giving out awards very soon. We haven't set a date yet, but I'll be giving out awards to the officers who worked on this pandemic. They'll receive a ribbon over their right side of their breast, the right breast, over their name tag. Has COVID-19 pandemic first responder, and also a medallion for civilians who served in a support role. So that's going to come out soon. I promoted Sergeant Condence, Sergeant Condence from sergeant to lieutenant a couple days ago. So now he's a lieutenant. That gives me a second gold badge in patrol. And I gave out a series of unit citations. One was to Corporal Timothy Lath for saving a life, and Ralph DeFalco for the same thing. They both received a citation for life-saving awards. And I'll say this in a general sense. I had a wonderful meeting with our federal partners, the FBI, the DEA, and some other people to help me with some initiatives to deal with the gun violence in the city of Annapolis. So more details of that will be forthcoming.
Okay, thank you so much, Chief Jackson. That was wonderful. We always like to hear the good things that our police department and as well as our entire public safety teams are doing.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
At this time, certainly, thank you. And now the written reports and comments and year-to-date overdose summaries from our public safety team, Director Simmons and Chief Romali or Deputy Chief Spriggs, and also Chief Jackson, if you have anything to add. Who wants to start?
Guess that'll be me.
Yes, I think so.
So year-to-date overdoses, we saw uptick in the escalation of overdoses when we came back from safer at home orders when this pandemic started. So once people were confined at home, we seen a little lull. But then once safer at home was over with, then we started seeing an escalation in overdoses. So far, 2020, as of today, we've had a total of 149 overdoses. And out of those 149 overdoses, 10 of them were fatal. And also we have 10 fatal overdoses pending the disposition of the medical examiner. So in the worst case scenario, we could have a total of 20 overdoses with a couple more months left to go in the year. Last year, the total fatal overdoses was 11. I'm sorry, 11 or 13. Let me check that. I think it was 13. So we're going to surpass that number, and I'll check that for you in a second. Last year at this time, we had a total of 127 overdoses with 11 fatals. So we're certainly surpassing the overdoses that we've had from last year. So what we're doing is We just had a meeting with Anne Arundel County to kind of resurgence of the Anne Arundel County, City of Annapolis Opioid Intervention Team. We had a meeting last week. The health department has hired a coordinator especially for all things opioid and substance use disorder. And we're looking to get that up and start. As you know, the Annapolis, I'm here in Annapolis, can you hear Annapolis? As you know, the Annapolis Opioid Intervention Team has always been constant. We've never dropped it. We've always stayed in touch. We've had at least meetings every 4 months or so. We've upped the amount of meetings that we've had to one every other month. We just had one in September. So we talked about the 4 programs that we have: the No Harm program in the mayor's office, Your Life Matters in the fire departments, the police department substance use disorder program, and OD Free Annapolis and the Office of Emergency Management. We did put in a grant for $98,000 to support those programs. We did not get the grant. What we did get was $250,000 from the health department for the
see, it's still on there. I can mute it.
You can't see me. Can you recommend it?
We did get $250,000 for the Wellmobile services to the City of Annapolis to provide low threshold model of buprenorphine and treatment support services. So that's great, but I want to know how that's going to work in this pandemic environment. So I'm talking to the health department to try to figure that out, how that would work, how we would make that work. Again, we were able to secure about $35,000 to support our 4 programs. That's nearly not enough. We need about, like we put in for, $98,000. So I've been talking with the city manager how we can kind of supplement that $35,000 and make sure these programs are up and running and are effective. That if we get, in addition to our $35,000, that'll only last us for maybe 4 to 5 months. So we certainly need to look at funding for these programs, because there is certainly a need for it at this point.
Director Simmons' question. We are looking at outfitting and putting on the road our mobile wellness vehicle. I've gotten some information back on how that should be structured, and I've passed it on to the city manager. But we're looking and hoping that can be a tool that we can use to get the word out, to go from community to community with the help also of our county health department. That's one thing we're looking at. But can you give us some other tools or suggestions that you have based on, because I missed the last OIT meeting, but any updates regarding anything else that we can do?
What I would say is that we need to deal with quality of life issues like record expungements, so people can go out and, they committed a misdemeanor, drug related, they can go out and have a fair chance at a job. Financial counseling, if you can imagine that one who's in the drug game or addicted for many, many years, things that we take for granted, like managing a family budget. If they're in recovery and they're having a second shot at life, these are type of things, quality of life things that they would need to have to be successful and stay out of that game. Support counseling, those sorts of things.
Could you provide me with a summary of that? What your suggestions are by the end of this week in writing?
I can I have an org chart on the steps where from when a person's addicted to when they go into recovery and supporting them in their new lifestyle. I think that would suffice. I think that would suffice, and we would looking.
Okay. If not, then I'll let you know. And I do know, at least with the police department, they have the new PEP reentry program that I think would be helpful in looking at as well. Chief Romali, Deputy Chief Spriggs, do you have anything to add?
So, like I said earlier, I know that we're the responders to when somebody has an overdose, which goes along with this whole program. But we definitely have seen an uptick in responses here lately. It's constant, it's continuous, and keeps going. And Chief Spriggs, you have anything else to add to it?
I can only give you the, sorry for the radio, the stats for the safe stations just in the past week, and we typically do that on our city meetings on Tuesdays, but our safe station program is still working. At 3 safe stations last week. So there are people that are still seeking help. We encourage people that are, to stop by one of the fire stations. We want to get them on the right track with crisis act.
Thank you. The other thing is too, Chief Jackson, I'm going to open it up for you, and then we'll open up for questions once we hear from everyone, Alderman Gay and Alderman Payon. Thank you. Chief Jackson. Chief Jackson, you're on mute.
Yep, I'm off now. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, and you said the floor is open up to me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In addition to what I spoke about just now, did you know? We're still doing a lot of things. Of course, we're still preparing for the workshop to present my community policing plan. Before it's shown publicly, I want you, Madam Chair, and the rest of the council to be able to see it before we release it to the public. And we can have a discussion if anything that I didn't put in it that needs to be put in it, or hopefully it's not anything that needs to be taken away from it, because I think it's real comprehensive. We're talking about everything from strict enforcement. I'm going to define what community policing is and what it isn't. And it should be amenable to both sides of the fence. I know there's still a population in Annapolis that wants to see strict enforcement and us targeting handguns and violence, and rightfully so. Everybody should live in a safe environment, and I do acknowledge that. I never wavered from that. Even amongst the Black Lives Matter movement, I've always argued that we have to have good public safety, and we still operate under the rule of law. So my approach every day in leading this department has to be to promote targeting violent offenders and getting violent offenders off of our streets of the city of Annapolis, while at the same time working with community groups to have a police department that they would like to see. But keeping in mind, we have laws on our books that have to be enforced. We can't have, regardless of what their motivation was or wasn't, we can't have trigger pullers, child molesters, burglars, carjackers, and robbers roaming the streets with impunity without there being any consequences because the police are too tentative not to offend anybody. We still have to protect the rest of the society from those type predators, while at the same time providing a social outreach that the reentry program provides, working with people to let them know that we do care about them as citizens, but we still operate under the rule of law, and the rule of law will still be enforced in the Annapolis Police Department. So those are the kind of things that I'm putting together, a comprehensive PowerPoint, so that it can be posted on our website, so that any citizen, once it's approved, and we all agree as a government, that's what we want. And that everybody can live with. I know I can't make everybody happy. There's going to be things that, I'm confident. I'm real confident that most people will enjoy it and have a sense of comfort and security, knowing that that we have a police department that everybody can see themselves in, a police department that recognizes that a lot of the problems we're not going to solve with arrests and strict enforcement, but then at the same time give the people who may not agree with that philosophy the idea that we're not wavering from strict enforcement. And so I'll talk about what that looks like logistically and what it looks like from an enforcement standpoint. I've gotten some pushback from a couple of people in the community, and I told them that I made the flex teams NET teams. And NET teams is the acronym for Neighborhood Enhancement Teams. There'll still be a component of enforcement in the NET teams. It's just that the NET teams will work with communities like Harbor House and Robinwood and Bywater, any community in Annapolis that's experiencing problems. They'll work with them to resolve those problems, both quality of life problems, particularly quality of life problems that lead to crime problems. So making the NET teams doesn't mean that they're abandoning their duty, because these officers took a duty. I don't care who you are. If you're a sworn officer, you took a duty to enforce the law. And so not even as police chief, I can tell my men and women not to enforce the law. What I can tell them to do is that they will partner with the community and sit down with the community more often than they have in the past to work towards solving some of the problems in the neighborhood. So that's kind of where we are. And I'll say this lastly, is that I had a wonderful meeting with the feds, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, the Federal and Drug Enforcement Administration, and other agencies. And they all want to partner with the Annapolis Police Department. I chaired the meeting last week, and I was really surprised. We had like 5 U.S. attorneys to show up, federal prosecutors to show up. And I want them to help me in a very comprehensive way to make sure that Annapolis doesn't deteriorate like a lot of American cities have during this COVID-19 pandemic and this protest movement. And I say that with all due respect, I say protest movement, but the demand for change, I should say police reform, that we still remain a viable city. And I'm working as hard as I can because I want every resident and political leader to have faith to know that they have a police department that they can depend on and that they have the public trust in. So I think that that pretty much covers where I've been here lately with in the direction that we're trying to take the Annapolis Police Department in. And if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, I'm ready for questions.
Okay, thank you, Chief Jackson. I'm kind of hearing somewhat of a common theme here. I'm hearing quality of life. I'm hearing community policing, but I'm hearing enforcement as well. And we're going to move ahead with a delicate balance. What I just listening to all of this, I'm going to propose this. I need to talk with the city manager, but I'm looking at the 3 public safety teams kind of putting together a proposal, a joint proposal that we can all take a look at and see which direction we want to go. I think we all have our own wheelhouses that we're operating in, but I think there's a way of cross-pollination, and there's a way of all of us getting together and looking at it. So I'm going to propose to our city manager that the 3 of you all, your 3 different departments, get together, and I'll be included in coming up with something that's workable amongst everyone that we can work together. Because I shudder to think we don't want to work in silos, and I know we don't, but I think there's an opportunity for all of us to work together and to move ahead together in a direction that's going to be positive for our city of Annapolis. And at this time, I know Alderman Gay had his hand up. He had a question or several questions. Alderman Gay and then Alderman Payon. And we have with us today Alderwoman Tierney, and if she would like to ask questions as well.
Yeah, I just had a question as it relates to the overdose numbers. And so I've asked this at previous meetings, but at what point do we start to, invest in and put action into some out-of-the-box ideas to kind of combat this disease? Because it seems to be only getting worse in our communities, and now it's attacking a much younger demographic. So how do we, maybe get out of I think maybe the messaging of the safe stations and stuff like that, and start to bring in some community, like in-home resources. I've mentioned previously, you know, when HIV was a thing, they made condoms free because they realized that it helped stop the spread. And so we have all of these resources and these tools, Narcan and stuff like that, that is free, but sometimes hard to come across. And then when people do hand it out, they got to take name and all of this stuff, the fentanyl strips, all of that stuff we have. I don't know, maybe we can start putting it in baggies on trees or something. I think that it's become such a huge issue in our communities and in our city. I was in Bay Ridge Gardens last weekend. Like, I left out and 5 minutes later, someone overdosed. And the community actually rallied around and, you know, did what they had to do. And so I don't know. I guess my question is just that, are there any other options on the table that we would start to look at to help this?
Well, I met with
Alderman Gay. I'm gonna start off by answering that question, and then you have some very good suggestions. And based on what I've just proposed with the city manager, would you please provide us with some of those out-of-box options in writing? That would be extremely helpful, and therefore we can all take a look at that and come up with how that all fits into what we want to do. It's an excellent suggestion. I was down there last week with you at Bay Ridge Gardens as well, and more of those types of events are necessary. But of course, the weather's starting to get cold, and we're all going to be going inside. So we're going to have to think of some out-of-the-box strategies, but it would be extraordinarily helpful if you could send me something within the next week. And then I can disseminate it, and I can talk to the city manager, and we can definitely infiltrate those suggestions into what proposal we come up with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, and I'll do so. And I guess that would lead me into a second. I'll be quick because I'm trying to get to the COVID testing before 6 over in Eastport. But so when I guess just to your point with getting everybody on the same page, and just as not just with opioid, but just in crime in general, because there are so many different theories on how we can fix violent crime and you know, in our communities. And I think that, you know, crime in Ward 6 is different than crime in Ward 2, even though it's the complete same crime, various situation, different environment, different people and stuff. And so, you know, coming up with a more tailored approach, that's something that I look forward to. And then also to benefit and to, you know, to help our public safety team trying to figure out how we can also hold property management accountable. And I'm not meaning that in a way of disrespect to anyone, but it has to be a partnership, both in our public and private properties, where they are equally investing the time, money, and resources into combating crime. Because I fear that we are this year's, you know, obviously with COVID and the depression and everything, it's been different, but I would fear that we repeat ourselves or go down some slippery slope of violent crime based off of just, you know, downright poverty. And what we're seeing now is, you know, cliquey situations and stuff. And so it is scary. Obviously, I'm trying to put full faith and trust into the three gentlemen before us in their respective roles as it relates to either violent crime, opioid prevention, and intervention. But I would love if at some point, maybe we did our own public safety retreat or something off of the grid so that we could really hash out some of the issues.
Alderman Gay, I'm going to suggest that you prepare that opioid out of the box to me by next Tuesday, October 13th. That would be good. And if you could have something to us regarding those additional measures that you indicated by, I'd say, Wednesday, October 28th. And that way we'll have something to present by our next public safety meeting, which would be Monday, November the 2nd. Does that timeline fit with yours?
Yeah, that's perfect. The 13th and the 2nd, I apologize, Wednesday.
13th of October for the initial opioid, and the Wednesday, the 28th, for your kind of overreaching proposals, because our next public safety meeting is Monday, November the 2nd. So it'll be an opportunity for us to take a look at it before the next public safety meeting, offer up some comments that we might have, and maybe we can have a robust discussion at the next public safety committee meeting. And that retreat, definitely add that on there. I think that's a great idea. And so we can talk about that. In the meantime, once you send me your first draft of your proposal, I will definitely talk to our city manager and roll that out to him. But also, as my understanding, city manager and I talked about it, I'm supposed to be in a meeting once a month with the public safety, I think, some couple of the public safety team members. So, but anyway, that would be great, Alderman Gay. That's why we have you on the public safety, to come up, a younger voice, a younger mind, to give us some things that we may not have thought about. That would be good. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Payon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Wait a minute. Okay. Thought I might have been muted there for a minute. I have no questions. I would like to tell the chief that I think he's largely on the right path. You know, I like what I hear. Now, whether it gets executed or not, I don't know. But I was chief of the violent crimes team here in Anne Arundel County, and I worked in the community and I worked with victims of violent crime on a regular basis. And, you know, it's a huge problem. And we've talked about this before. There are a number of different approaches. I think both police and society in general need to take to make this problem, well, if not go away, at least be more manageable. And, you know, I think that, you know, what he's suggesting is, and what they're beginning to do is, you know, or perhaps baby steps, but steps nevertheless in the right direction. Thank you.
I would just like to make the Alderman, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, is it okay if I comment? Yeah, we sent, I don't have the numbers before me, but I will have them in short order. But we sent some young men today. We transported them to training in Baltimore just for the training. They're Annapolis residents. Each and every person are all Annapolitans who live here. We just sent them to Baltimore for some HVAC training, air conditioning and heating training today. And it's about 10 of them, I think, to try to get them in jobs. They were all unemployed, and they were from Robinwood and Harbor House. So we drove them there this morning, Robert Horn. And so I wanted this to be more than just lip service. I wanted us to have some actionable items and some items that we can talk about beyond just planning. So
well, I think you know that's big. I mean, that's huge. You know, I've said this before publicly at our meetings and at council meetings. That is that people that stay in school tend not to commit crimes while they're in school, and you know that, Chief. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of the really bad guys we go after, they're high school dropouts.
That's right.
I mean, that's not to say all high school dropouts are bad by any means, but I mean, step number one of leading a life of crime is don't finish school.
Right.
And, you know, step number two is don't have any job skills.
Right.
And you're taking care of at least part of it. And that's a good thing. I mean, granted, it's only 5 or 6 or however many, but hey, little steps, you know. Let's see what happens for these folks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Alderman Tierney, do you have any comments or questions?
I think you touched upon it with what Alderman Gay. Some of his initiatives should be translated into any sort of monetary needs, and in other words, put in our budget and should be addressed this Saturday at our work session. You know, because ultimately, you know, it does translate into money, and this is a real priority that we don't want to lose sight of.
And if I could, to that point really quickly, I think that, you know, with all that's going on in COVID and, you know, the loss of, you know, revenue in so many places, it will be scary for us to leap out and spend on social issues in the middle of an economic crisis. But the reality is that if we don't, our city will be in a much worse place than when we started. If we allow people to create their own revenue, if you know what I mean. And so we have to, I don't think that it is unreasonable that if we present a plan and it is $2.5 million invested into crime prevention, opioid prevention, or job training skills, I don't think that that's unreasonable at all. When we look at how much we would gain from that in these communities that have been historically underserved. And just think about, I'll just use a quick example with these refund checks and stuff that, the COVID has provided. So many young people in our cities have created businesses, whether it be like hair care products, clothing, just so many things. They are utilizing the resources that they are giving to better themselves. So people obviously want to do better. I've just see comments and stuff, and just over the past, I know we had a crazy weekend as it relates to shootings, but don't let that distract you from the fact that the majority wants to do better. And if we can take a little bit, I think that 2.5 million is a little bit in the grand scheme of things. If we can take something like that and invest in our communities, it would just be so special. And to Ellie's point, we have to bring it to the budget. I mean, that's the only way that these three gentlemen can work. I mean, they can't work without money.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate.
I would suggest, go right ahead, Alderwoman Tierney, go ahead.
No, just to follow up, these quality of life issues are that much more important during the pandemic because we don't want these residents, this population to erode away from us. I mean, this is the future of our city, and we have to help these residents, and we have to give them housing. So it's the same effort, parallel to this is also, not to change the subject, but affordable housing. These quality of life issues have to be put into our budget now more than ever. And I know it will be really difficult because of our overrun problem.
Right. Thank you all so much. One thing I want to ask our City Council Associate, Ms. Green, to add within the minutes today, that is my responsibility to contact our city manager this week to talk about the opioid immediacy issue, as well as a joint proposal from our public safety team I will be talking to the city manager this week about that. Number two, Alderman Gay has indicated that he will be providing us with some suggestions regarding opioid issues no later than October 13th, and that he will be preparing a kind of a grand proposal in his mind to us no later than October 28th, and that Alderman Payon, as well as Alderman Gay and we will be coming to the retreat on Saturday, and this will be on the agenda for the retreat. Does that sound like good minutes from this public safety meeting based on my colleagues on the committee? Ms. Green, any questions?
Yes, I have, none of what you just said I have. So I'm going to need for you to send that to me, preferably in an email.
I'll send it to you.
I heard
I'm sorry, say that again.
But
okay, I'll send it to you. I will send it to you today. Within the next 24 hours, I will send it to you. Okay. All right. Okay, great. Thank you.
We're going to be counting those hours too.
I know. Anyway, any other comments or questions or suggestions or anything? We're still under business before the committee, number 4 on the agenda. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, legislation before the committee. We have 3 pieces of legislation. All 3 will be on the Transportation Committee agenda on Thursday as well. First order is 0-28-20 parking permit display. for the purpose of requiring that a residential parking permit must be visibly displayed on the vehicle to which it was issued. And Alderwoman Tierney is our chair for our transportation department. Transportation committee.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Is Mr. Gordon available? Is he here today? Okay, I've received his staff report, so thank you. Alderwoman Tierney, yes.
Yeah, and his staff report is very succinct. This legislation is sort of a rollback of technology, if you will, for old-fashioned reason, basically. As you might be aware, in the residential parking district areas, the residents apply for a parking permit, and that's all done electronically, and their license plate number is tied into enforcing. So basically, the enforcers just need, they zip around in their cars and they zap the license plate, whether or not it's a resident or a non-resident, because non-residents can only park for 2 hours or less. But what's been happening, and it creates a lot of unfortunate phone calls, is residents will see a car parked for more than 2 hours, maybe, you know, in front of their driveway or something, and they don't know if it's a resident or not. I mean, so they're asking, this went through the Transportation Commission. They're asking for the stickers to be displayed. With the technology, there's no reason for the stickers because the enforcing agency looks at the license plate. But we're sort of forcing the issue now with this legislation to say, you know, they get a sticker, please put it on so a resident can say, you know, that's my neighbor's car. It has a sticker, so I'm just going to knock on their door and I won't call the police. I won't call SP Plus. So it's just very simply saying, put your sticker on your window. So hopefully it will, you know, it will minimize calls and then just be a little bit more neighborhood friendly. So that's it. Uh-oh, I can't hear.
All right. As you said, Mr. Gordon always prepares a wonderful and succinct report. So we thank him for all three of these, two of them, and Dr. Nash. Yes, Alderman Payam.
How often does it happen that in your ward that SP Plus will get called for, turns out to be nothing in terms of for parking issues? Well, like the one you described.
I don't have that data, so it would just be an anecdotal response, but you know, a lot. But this request mostly came from the residents and their frustration and not knowing who's parking on their street. So you know, they can simply know that it's a neighbor and not someone, you know, else. So it helps. It's the residents have been tasked with a lot of different things in the city. We've been tasked with what we call self-enforcing, basically, because you know we don't have enforcing people all over the place. So to serve that, this request came from the residents that then help us help you by having the cars put stickers on so we know whether or not they're a resident or not. And it doesn't cost any extra money or anything like that because people get the stickers, they just don't put them on the back windshield.
So they already get them? Yes,
they do. Yeah.
Could be they don't put them on because they're ugly.
Probably. Yeah. Probably. I mean, they're little with it. They say District 1 or District 2 and on them.
Is this within a certain zone or?
Yeah, there's about, oh gosh, how many? At least, well, several parking districts, you know.
How many? How many?
I don't know. I have to check the code. I want to guess 5 or 6.
I think it's 5, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just.
Anyone else? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I didn't know if anyone else had any questions, but go ahead, Alderwoman Tierney.
No, that's all I meant to say. It's just sort of a housekeeping thing to make sure that they put their sticker on their windshield wiper. And it also, I don't know if you drive into other cities, like I know when I drive into Washington, D.C., and I'm driving through a residential area and I see all those cars parked that have like a big 2 on them, I know I can't park, you know, so it does sort of have this enforcing a weight to it, just putting the sticker on the car, and they pay for it. So
how would this one affect residents that don't have the funding to keep up with this? Because I really have to head out because the line is really long at the COVID testing. But to this point, I think that this ties in with 03320 and towing. And if vehicles are not, with the sticker, then they would get fines, and that would lead to towing and all. And I think that both of these pieces of legislation would serve a great purpose, but I fear that it would create unnecessary problems just for individuals who can't finance either the towing or the tickets that build up over a month or something like that. I think that would create a bunch of problems. How do we make sure that our residents are protected?
Well, that's a good point. This is not really related to the towing. The towing was really one-stop shopping for the reasons why we tow, and I can speak to that later. But we don't tow residents unless there's if they're on a red curb or something safety-wise. But this is really serves the residents that live in residential parking districts, and they pay for the permit to park in the residential parking districts. Non-residents can park in residential parking districts for 2 hours or less. I don't think it will open up any more towing opportunities or anything like that. This is just so that there are calls to SP Plus, this car has been parked there, and just create this adversary. Is that a word? I still do favor the legislation because I understand what you're doing, but it would unintentionally create those issues because it would be with the MVA. If SP Plus ticketed a car and say, it's a $75 or $50 ticket, I think we start out at for parking, and you can't pay that $50 or $75 right then and there, then that flag is sent to the MVA. So then you have to pay the $25 administrative fee to the MVA, your $75 ticket. And if you don't do that within a certain period of time, then they tack on another. So I think that it would create those problems. So I think that the biggest piece of this would just be educating people and saying like, hey, look, you really, really need to put this sticker or whatever out there for those reasons. Yeah, I think that's kind of why I support it. I think the visual is really important here because nobody looks at signs, but if they see cars that have that sticker on it, they know, this is a residential parking district, and then look at the sign and see that they can park there for 2 hours or less. I don't have the data on how much ticketing we do for residential parking districts. I just know that SP Plus doesn't like to, come out, for false reasons. So this is helpful to them as well. Rick Gordon isn't on the call, is he? No.
One suggestion, Alderman Gay, we might want to take a look at this in about 6 months and get some data in 6 months. Alderwoman Tierney, would that be amenable to you?
They have that data. They do.
Let's look at the data in 6 months and see where we are without the legislation and then where we are with the legislation. Does that satisfactory you, Alderman Gay?
Yeah. I said, from the beginning, I think it's fine. I just throwing out the little, the little things that, could create issues.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Let's take a look at it in about 6 months. We'll have data brought back.
Madam Chair, I might have to. I might have to vote for this simply because I heard a term I've never heard before, and I absolutely love it. A towing opportunity. That's great. If that's in the legislation, then I am for it. I've never heard that term.
Okay. Are we ready to vote on this piece of legislation? Can I hear a motion?
Make a motion to move to the committee in favor. Or
Second.
To the full council in favor, sorry.
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, but Madam Chair, understand that when it comes to the council, I may or may not vote in favor of it. I think it needs a little bit more study, probably by me before I vote, but it's aye for today, for sure.
Yeah, just let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, we'll do.
Thank you. All right, we will move this favorably to our colleagues on the council. Next item on the agenda, O-31-20, non-motorized wheel vehicles. I've had an opportunity to take a look at the staff report prepared by Dr. Nash. Alderwoman Tierney, do you have anything to add or to let us in on?
Hi. This was actually initiated by Gavin, and then I tagged myself onto it. And what it does is it corrects the code. Instead of saying what's not allowed, it basically says what is allowed. And the code was a little bit restrictive before on these non-motorized things such as skateboards and such. Obviously, we want to have skateboards and such, you know, I hate to say the word, but you know, yeah, non-car things like, yeah, scooters. I mean, just to be a little bit more flexible. So the code was sort of restrictive, but the compromise was this language says, yeah, we allow them, and here's a list of what we allow, but they can't be used in a non-safe way. So that's trying to multitask and call up the legislation at the same time, but that's sort of the gist of it.
Any questions by my colleagues?
Yeah.
On this piece of legislation.
Why is this necessary?
The way it read before was limiting them. If you see the cross out, it's sort of a double negative. I'm desperately trying to read that first paragraph. Does anybody have it in front of them?
I've got the
first
report.
Basically, I remember. But what I said was the reason is that we wanted to allow them.
I had the staff report in front of me. I think I can get the.
Well, the staff report says it as well. Hold on, I gotta hear it.
Okay, it just seems.
Okay.
You know, almost redundant to me, but
it was.
I mean, you can never. I don't think the city would ever sanction anybody operating any kind of vehicle or anything really in a negligent manner, and this says. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of a correction. I know Sally can probably chime in, but if you see the language before, it says a person. It read before a person may not ride on or use any non-motorized vehicle in a negligent manner on any public street, alley, sidewalk, or way in the city of Annapolis. And so when you change it to say in a positive tone, a person may ride on or use any non-motorized wheeled vehicle on any public street, alley, sidewalk, or way in the city of Annapolis, provided it is not done so in a negligent manner. So it just changes a negative to a positive, unless Dr. Nash would like to add anything that I've missed. And Gavin,
that was perfect.
Was that okay?
It's really just to clarify that language and then to add some more details. That's all. Our local bike advocacy group, Bike AAA, has wanted us to clarify this for a few years, and we just finally got it on the to-do list.
Okay. I totally respect Mr. Corrin, so if he says so, then I'm all for it. Alderman Payne, you have any other questions?
No.
Okay.
No,
Alderman Gay.
I do not.
Okay. All right. We're ready to vote.
I'll move approval.
All right. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye that we move this piece of legislation to the full body of the council. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No. All right. And to our last piece of legislation, O-33-20, towing of vehicles for the purpose of clarifying when a stop, standing, or parked vehicle is subject to towing. Alderwoman Tierney. I've had an opportunity to read staff reports and look at the legislation.
You know, it's funny. I think as I'm chair of the Transportation Committee, I get these. My first piece of legislation, I'll have you know, was towing. It's like this is not
and the opportunity thereof.
One of the benefits of being transportation chair. But the simple reason for this legislation is clarity. And connecting the dots, if you will. Instead of looking at two sections of the code, you go to one. But it did come up on this whole driveway issue, on blocking a driveway, and it wasn't clear. When it reaches the point where we have to tow, that's a big deal. It's not it's not. They don't like to tow. I mean, they have to they have to go to an outfit. They have two vendors that they contact. It isn't fun to do. So, so when they do tow, they have to have a solid reason to do so. So this clarifies in the code the specific reasons why we need to tow. And I think, again, I'm trying to call it up on my phone, is nothing was added, but there was some clarification on the driveway thing because that was mentioned somewhere else. So I think what drives this, and Rick Gordon would say this himself, is life safety. People being able to get out of their driveways, or the fire. Chief O'Malley would support that these red curbs, especially in the historic district, are vital to don't park in because they can't make the turn. The trucks can't make the turn, and so that's a life safety issue too. So, but that's the whole premise of this cleanup code.
Thank you, Chief O'Malley. Would you like to weigh in on this piece of legislation regarding the public safety issue? In the meantime, Alderman Payon, your question.
Thank you. I have two, actually. Number one, this doesn't seem to exclude blocking your own driveway. I can get towed for blocking my own driveway. That doesn't seem appropriate. And number two, it doesn't include areas that have signs saying tow zone or something like that. I think as it is right now, it would not authorize the city to create tow zones, if you will, and put up a sign where everybody in the world will know you can get towed for parking there. I think both of those need to be addressed. The second one is the easier of the two. That is just add on that, and of course, wherever there's a sign saying you can be towed. The first one's a little more complicated. I happened to get a car towed where I was blocking my own driveway years and years ago, when it wasn't nearly as expensive. But nevertheless, it seemed then and seems now kind of silly to get your car towed if you're blocking your own driveway. Okay, you're not supposed to park in front of your own driveway, but I don't think it's an offense that's $150 or $200 worth, because that's what it ends up being when you pay the tow bill and the whatever fine is imposed.
Yeah, I think you have to look at this in the spirit of the way it's enforced. It isn't that the tow trucks are going around saying we're going to tow that car because we see it. The complaints usually come from the person who's suffering this infringement. So it usually comes from somebody that has a strange car blocking their driveway, and they make the call, and then SP Plus comes out, they react, they come out and look, and I guess consequently.
Well, can SP Plus check on, who lives at this house, or at least who the homeowner is? It's a little difficult for renters. I understand that, but I don't know what the answer is, frankly, to that part.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you feel that a resident it's okay for a resident to block their own driveway. For instance, would be my daughter, who grew up in the house I live in,
comes and visits from time to time, and she simply parks in the driveway. I don't have a sidewalk going down to the street. You have to walk up my driveway anyhow. And it just just doesn't seem right that you could get a ticket essentially for, for parking in front of your own house.
Right.
Alderman Payon, I have a situation to propose to you. Suppose you had a guest at your house and they park in your driveway, and you came home and you couldn't get in your driveway, so you blocked your own driveway, but the police or the fire department had to be called. Now, you've parked in front of your own driveway, but for whatever reason, no one can get out because your guest is in your own driveway. Now, that's a kind of extreme situation, but I'm just saying, if the fire department can't get there, I guess is my whole point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say quickly, just because I have to go, I'm voting for this, but for the reason of trash pickup within my ward, especially on President Street, we've had a ton of parking issues and people have called it in a lot. So I'm in favor of this, but I have to go. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doing that, Juan.
Alderwoman Tierney, I think that the thing with the sign, I think, is an easy addition to this. Just sort of an inclusive anywhere, where there's a sign that says it's a tow zone. But I agree that the second part of that is not nearly as easily answered, and I don't know that you could ever come up with something satisfactory. But I think the one thing you can do, and that is just add that, or wherever, number 5, wherever there is a sign indicating this is a tow zone, something to that effect.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think just to hop back on the first issue, one other thing about that is it sort of opens up a can of worms, because if you specifically allow residents to do that, then you don't know if that person's a resident or not, and it kind of gets into a whole privacy issue. You're going to have to knock on the door and say, is that person a resident? It just gets kind of messy. I don't know. So it's almost one of those things where you best to stay silent on it. And then just the priority again is egress. And
our problem usually revolves around use of the stadium, and those people that live within just a couple blocks of the stadium. It doesn't often happen, but sometimes somebody will block a driveway simply because they didn't look very carefully. Yeah. And they come out after the game and it's like, hello, where's my car? And, they got towed because somebody wanted to get in and out. And I think something happens when people that didn't want to get in and out, they just don't want their driveway blocked. And,
it's difficult because the legislation doesn't really speak to the reality, and the reality is it comes from.
I'm hearing an echo. Can everyone go on mute if you can, please?
Yeah, I was just saying that the legislation doesn't really speak to the reality. If it's a Navy football game, pretty much everybody closes their eyes. But again, this is not proactive enforcing. This is reactive enforcing when SP Plus gets a call and says, I have a problem, you have to move this car. But the legislation can't specifically say that, but that's the reality that is hard to legislate.
Thank you, Alderwoman Tierney. Chief O'Malley, Deputy Chief Spriggs, would you like to weigh in on this, please?
So I would just say that parking is always an issue in the city of Annapolis. We have some very narrow streets, and any illegally parked car causes challenges for us to get to emergency scenes. I personally would not weigh in on the blocking of a driveway aspect of it, just because I'm not too sure where that hampers us is just blocking the driveway. It's our ability to make the turns, the blocking of the fire hydrants, the red curbs. They're the ones that we're more concerned about for fire service.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Are we ready to vote on this piece of legislation? Alderman Payon. You're on mute, Alderman Payon. Alderman Payon, you're on mute.
All right, you got lucky.
Okay, can I hear a motion?
The blocking the fire hydrants to me is a bigger problem than the blocking the driveways. I mean, I've called on places that are like in the back of Admiral Heights, where probably many of you have never been, you know, way at the top at the end of Cedar Park and Halsey, and because a contractor one night left the job, he left his truck there and he parked it right in front of a fire hydrant. And it was a pretty good sized truck. I mean, it potentially presented a problem had there been, you know, that type of an emergency on the street, and they got a big ticket and got towed. And they deserved it. I mean, I didn't feel 1 ounce of compassion for doing something like that. I mean, blocking a driveway, there's some driveways, well, it's just, if you don't look carefully, you could kind of miss that there's one there. And, but a fire hydrant, I don't know how the hell you miss that. At any rate, I don't know that you need to add that to the proposed ordinance, and I'm going to support it anyway. I just think you need to maybe add that one extra part, Ellie. That's all. And I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Can I hear a motion?
Yeah, right here.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. All right. I think we've reached the end of our agenda. Does anyone have anything for the good of the order? I'm gonna, Chief Simmons texted me and said he's on his way to the testing, so he had to leave. Chief Romali or Deputy Chief Spriggs, anything for the good of the order? No. Going once, going twice. Nothing.
No, I don't have anything.
All right.
I think Chief Spriggs can tell you the testing was, though, because he went there earlier.
I went and had my COVID testing earlier, and it was at a very good turnout.
Good. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for the report. All right. Alderwoman Tierney.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just being a nerd, and I was curious about the fire hydrants, and I just wanted to tell that's it. That is addressed. This just addresses the changes, but that has always been addressed in the code. And so the staff report just speaks to the changes of the
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of concerned about that, but yeah, it's red and yellow curves.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Payon, you have anything for the good of the order?
Yeah, I think the good of my order would move me to make a motion.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Chief Jackson, do you have anything for the good of the order? You're on mute.
No, ma'am. It was a good meeting, and I look forward to continuing some of the conversation on Saturday at the workshop.
Okay. Chief Jackson, do you have a few minutes to talk to me after the meeting?
Yes, ma'am. I'm in my office now, and I do. I have a few minutes. In fact, I see this ongoing problem, which I won't get into with the email, and I wanted to talk to you about that anyway.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Alderman Payon.
All right. Now, can I please move?
Yes, you can.
For adjournment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it is now 5:25. Thank you all. Have a great week, and we'll see you on Saturday.
Eat a chocolate and eat bread.